Welcome to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R Squared Global.
Welcome to another edition of the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Ray, where we bring on the biggest names in energy, and today is no exception. We're getting into something that's really fascinating. We're going to talk about renewable energy and how we can bring in big data and how we can partner with these foreign countries who are in the emerging markets, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, and bring them up that they have a wide impact on their society so that you can look at that renewable energy. It lowers the cost, it helps them pay it back over a long period of time, and that brings wealth to these societies, and so that's going to bring up their economy as they grow from an emerging market into a first world society. And we bring on Sandra Kwak to help us with that. Sandra, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Okay, so kind of give me your background. Every time I bring on an energy professional, I like to know what got them into energy, what was the draw, and then specifically why renewables.
Sure thing. So I've been in the energy field for about 10 years. I initially moved here to San Francisco because I wanted to get my MBA in sustainable business at Presidio Graduate School. And while I was studying there, I started looking overall at the impacts of climate change and the accelerating impacts upon society, and looking at where most of the carbon emissions were coming from. And so doing just an overall analysis, about 1/3 of carbon emissions come from the built environment, which is the highest contributor to carbon dioxide emissions internationally. And when you look at the footprint of the built environment, a lot of that comes from energy generation sources, not to mention the energy that goes into our fossil fuel burning coal-fired power plants and things like that. So I started working in the energy field at Pacific Gas and Electric, helping to run one of their carbon offset programs. And then from there founded an energy efficiency company that was focused on hardware, software solutions for buildings to reduce their energy usage. And most recently, before I founded 10 Power, I was working at AutoGrid, which is a company that's using smart meters to balance supply and demand on the grid in real time. So we were building apps for utilities to manage increasing frequencies and the unreliability of renewable energies that are generating at different times. And then we were also running demand response events. So looking at demand side resources as a reliable source of electricity reduction, which could be considered a source of electricity, and helping to run demand response events for residential customers using big data.
Okay, well, you brought up the magic word there. I want to get into big data. Kind of break down just 30,000 feet view. What does big data mean when we say that term? And then I want to get into it a little bit more from there.
Sure thing. So big data is a really exciting field of computer science and statistics analysis, where we now have the computational algorithms to be able to process full sets of data. So historically, we would take a small sample of data and try and extrapolate conclusions based on a small sample size. But now we actually have the computing and processing power to intake complete sets of information in real time. So looking at smart meters as an example, with smart meters, we went from 1 meter read per month to meter reads everywhere from every 15 minutes down to every 2 minutes. So we went from 12 readings per month to hundreds of thousands of readings per month per meter. And what we can do with that information is we can actually start to predict when those peak times are going to be on the grid. And we can also send out rebates to customers. So if you can predict in advance when there's going to be an electricity spike, you can actually send out price signals to customers. So at AutoGrid, we were running one of the largest demand response residential programs in the United States at Oklahoma Gas and Electric. And people were saving $500 per summer just by participating in load reduction programs. And big data is a really exciting field for energy, for health sciences, for fintech, financial technologies. And we're going to create massive inclusion for people across the world, as well as increasing our understanding of inputs and outputs and systems as a whole.
Okay, so you covered a lot of ground there, and it's very exciting stuff, and I agree. I'm looking forward to see some of these applications. I was at a young professionals event the other day, and they were showing us some of their big data applications, and it's just mind-boggling. Where would you say we're at with big data, though? It's a term that's kind of caught on here in the last year or two. But as far as you know how this stuff goes. You got the early adopters, and you got folks like me who are a little bit slower to catch on, but we eventually catch on. Where would you say that big data is at? Is it still in the early stages, or is it really matured to something that is going to be more accessible to the masses now?
Well, there's a joke in Silicon Valley and it goes, "What is a data scientist?" And it's basically a statistician. who lives in Silicon Valley. So data science is nothing new, and we've had statisticians for a long time. We now are increasing our computational capacities, with supercomputers. But I think that we're in the beginning of the upswing. So we're seeing a lot of attention in terms of the investment community, in terms of startups that are working with big data. And I think that we still have yet to unleash the full capacity of what big data can provide as it relates to energy, as it relates to health, as it relates to markets. So I think that there's still so much to be uncovered in terms of the potential of big data. But I think that it's definitely nothing new in terms of our understanding. So it's pretty exciting where we are right now.
Yeah, and I'm nowhere near up to snuff on big data as you are, but one of the things that does excite me is that the more people who begin to think about the possibilities that we could use big data for, I think that's when we're really going to see the full benefit of big data, because it's great now where it's at, but the more people get involved and they go, hey, have you ever considered using it for this, or what about the correlation between this and this? So I think that we can see a lot of progress in big data as more people become aware of it, and they think outside the box. Hey, how can we use this? So I'm interested to see where it goes. I love some of the stuff that I've seen from it. I was at a deal the other day, like I was mentioning, and they said that they can predict like I think it was a motor that can go out within 50 days of the time that's going to go out. Now, the life cycle of the motor is years and years and years, and they can reduce that it's going to go out within 50 days. And I was just blown away by that kind of accuracy. And so it's definitely exciting stuff. So I'm a little jealous. I'm not smart enough to work on it, but I am jealous of those who do get to work on stuff like that. So kudos to you guys that are on the cutting edge, and us Texans that maybe are a little bit slower. So.
Yeah, I'm from Texas too.
Okay, well now you're making me look really bad. So let's move along then. Okay, so let's talk about renewable energy, and let's get into Haiti here. First off, Haiti has been on the news from time to time in the U.S. Kind of step back and give us the landscape of what's going on in Haiti.
Haiti is it's interesting in the media. Haiti gets a bad rap, and you only hear of negative things. And I've heard the same frustrations from a lot of people who are working as entrepreneurs in Africa. That you have this automatic negative bias. And I think part of that is the sensationalism that the media gravitates toward. So thinking about natural disasters, sometimes the only mentions of Haiti that you see in the news are when there's something wrong. But what's actually going on in Haiti right now is very promising. So they have a new president named Jovenel Moïse, who was just inaugurated in February. He himself kind of lifted himself up by the bootstraps. He has an agricultural business growing bananas, and he also is running a water business in Haiti. And so he's pro-business. He wants to revitalize the agricultural sector there. And he also is pro-solar. I actually had the honor of meeting with him when he was a candidate, and we talked a lot about solar-powered drip irrigation systems and the potential to really reduce costs and increase output and yields for farmers and for all sectors, really. Haiti has some of the highest electricity prices in the world. So if you're looking from a grid standpoint, they're between 35 and 40 cents per kilowatt hour. And compare that within the U.S., electricity prices range between 9 and 12 cents. So you're already looking at a higher cost of electricity from a grid standpoint, but the grid is not reliable. So about 70% of the population does not have access to the grid. So you're looking at any combination that people are using of kerosene, propane, charcoal, which causes deforestation, and diesel-powered generators, which most businesses use around the clock to power their operations. And the price of diesel fluctuates wildly. So even with the worldwide low energy prices for oil that we've seen recently, business owners are still spending anywhere up to $3 per kilowatt hour for running a diesel generator, depending on how efficiently and what the current price of oil is in Haiti. So they are spending an arm and a leg electricity, which powers everything. If you think about, how you run your business or your day-to-day operations or your human comfort or where your water comes from, all of that requires electricity. So this high price of electricity is creating crippling economic conditions for the country, and it's also preventing every single other aspect of economic modernization. And that's the problem that 10 Power aims to solve.
Yeah, and you did a great job of describing it there, because sometimes we hear these numbers, well, it costs X here, it costs Y there, and we really don't think about that as that you got the business owner, and he can't grow his business because energy costs are high, but you also have your average person in Haiti who can't maybe save up a little bit more for retirement, send their kid to get a better education, and so the impacts of high energy really affect the entire economy, and it can be crippling, as you said. And so, on top of, you said that the grid's unreliable as well, and they have high energy costs. How have y'all decided to try to tackle this problem? Because it seems like it's a very large scale problem for such it's a small area, but it's a large problem.
Exactly. So 10 Power focuses on the missing pieces in the market. So I started going to Haiti about 2 years ago with this, what I call a humble learner approach. So instead of coming in with all the answers, I came in with the knowledge that there's this huge problem where all these people don't have access to expensive, and then just started interviewing people, focused on customer-centric and human-centric and community-centric design, and using the principles of user experience, going and talking to various business owners and solar installers and people who had done projects in the market before to figure out why there wasn't a thriving solar industry there. Haiti has tons of sunshine. They have up to 364 sunny days per year. And like many countries that suffer from extreme energy poverty, they're located very close to the equator. So they really have the optimal conditions for solar. And what we found after talking to a whole lot of different stakeholders was that there's virtually no access to finance in these markets. And so to fill in those missing gaps, 10 Power has built a business model around providing finance as well as project management, project development, and project management for ensuring that these solar installations are done up to international codes and standards. So we're working directly with local solar installers and local stakeholders. We're bringing in international engineering resources, relationships with suppliers, and then providing that critical missing piece, which is finance, so that the business owners can procure their solar system and then pay it back month over month as opposed to all at once. So it's similar to the US where, who could really afford an entire solar installation or a house or a car for that matter without financing? Most people utilize credit and financial systems in order to be able to afford things. And in Haiti, that's exactly what we're doing with these business owners who are in turn going to generate more revenue for their community and more benefit for their society.
Okay, before we got on, I was just interviewing Andreas Corellis about his company Revolve, and they kind of have something similar here in the U.S. now. Their business model is crowdfunding, and you've mentioned that you're bringing funds to Haiti. Are y'all doing a crowdfunding type thing? Are you looking for venture capitalism? How are you bringing the money to Haiti?
Andreas is actually a really good friend of mine. That's great. Yeah, I love what they're doing in terms of crowdfunding for schools and nonprofits. We actually are looking at a little bit more institutional and large-scale finance. So to date, we have raised equity from impact investors, and we have some really awesome investors, including Judy Staley, who founded Rec Solar, which was one of the early residential solar providers in the U.S. market, and sold it to Sunrun in 2014. And we now are going to be raising some debt so that we can invest directly in these projects and then provide returns. So it's win-win-win all the way around for our investors, for our customers, for 10 Power, and for the environment. So currently we're going to embark upon raising a debt fund to fulfill a large portfolio of commercial and industrial customers with high impacts on society, ranging from large-scale water producers all the way down to women's owned cooperatives. So we're creating a blended portfolio so that the bulk of the credit and the returns are coming from these large, big brand international customers. But at the same time, we're able to service these small to medium community-based businesses that might not otherwise be able to qualify for a loan. So that's what we're preparing to do right now. And we're looking to more traditional sources of capital like philanthropic funders, potentially corporate grants, private equity, and other large debt providers and multilateral institutions.
Okay, you touched on a word there I want to circle back around to. You said high impact. And kind of walk us through why you're going after high impact and how that would work for the local economy there.
So we actually got a grant from an organization called Invoking the Pause, and we took 9 people, including an MBA student team who had worked on a semester-long project with us from Presidio, down to Haiti for the summer, this last summer. And we went to remote villages in the south, which sadly were hit by the hurricane in October of 2016. And when we went out to these villages with residential solar packages and demoed these solar packages for the villagers, what we heard from them was, this is great. We want energy. We want electricity. First, can you bring us economics? Bring us jobs. Bring us roads. Bring us schools for our kids. And that really struck home for me. as a social entrepreneur is to help serve the base of the economic pyramid and the people who really are coming from nothing to have a shot, and going out into these really remote communities that didn't even have paved roads and were so far off the grid. I really realized to create true economic opportunity and not just be giving people a small light that they can solar power, but giving them energy that will help them to create a job requires lifting the entire economy as a whole. And by focusing on businesses that are providing critical goods and services like clean water, education, and then also helping these businesses to thrive and helping them to create more jobs and helping them keep money in the country instead of spending it on imported subsidized diesel and utilizing a natural resource that's already abundant in Haiti, we will be able to lift all boats and to create more economic opportunity based on a sustainable renewable resource.
No, and one of the things I want to commend you for is, I've been to I haven't been to Haiti, but I've been to a lot of poor regions of the world, and when you get there, you just want to help, and you think, okay, this is the best way to help. But you really want to tip my hat to you going and listening and saying, okay, this is what we think we need to do, and then the people coming back and say, no, we really want this, and then adopting your plan. I know that's kind of probably you go down there with all these visions, and then you come back and you have to kind of step back and go, okay, well, what we thought was best may not be best. So I just want to tip my hat to you again and say, hey, thank you for listening, because when you go to these poor areas, it's almost overwhelming and depressing. I feel like when I've come back from Honduras or South Africa or wherever I've been, you sit back and you go, how on earth could we ever solve this problem? So I love the approach of going with these high impact things that can use the term trickle down. They can kind of trickle down to the rest of the economy, and so it's very encouraging to hear. Now Haiti's one spot, and I think you may have aspirations to go other places. Is that true? Can you kind of tell us about that?
Absolutely. We definitely have international expansion dreams. So currently we actually have an intern who's working with us for the year from Kenya, and we're doing an in-depth market analysis of the African market. We've been invited to Ghana by partners, and we're also looking very closely at the Benin market. It's hard, as an entrepreneur, there's always more demands and more opportunities than you have time to fulfill. So I've been participating a little bit in other opportunities just to suss out. The Southeast Asian market is of interest to us. We're planning on entering the African market first and looking very closely at West Africa. But I recently actually participated just in a build-a-thon or create-a-thon over the weekend that was sponsored by the World Bank, the U.S. Department of State, and Buzal and Hamilton, and that was for clean energy in Myanmar. And so they're actually running a prize now for teams to utilize big data to try and come up with renewable energy solutions for Myanmar. And I'm happy to share that link, so we can put it in the description of the podcast. I know that Bhutan is also really interested in renewable energy right now. And about a year ago, I'd spoken with some investors in the Philippines. So this is a market that's just going to keep on growing and growing. People really see the opportunity. We're being approached by a lot of different countries right now. So the biggest challenge for us right now is just keeping a laser focus, and really delivering on our products and making sure that we have really solid local partnerships and getting our process down so that we can scale it elsewhere.
Yeah, it sounds like you're having to force yourself to say no because you're having so many opportunities. And I know that's got to be tough.
That's always the biggest challenge. I call it opportunity overload.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And with a product like you guys have and what you're trying to do, there's a lot of wisdom in how you're proceeding. And so I know Africa has a huge need. I've been a part of the Power Africa conference before, and just kind of seeing some of the numbers of the people in Africa that are really struggling. It's just heartbreaking. So, well, look, I want to bring up one last thing before I let you go. I know you get to speak at TEDx there in San Francisco, if I remember correctly, and kind of walk us through that process. That's always love hearing about how those opportunities come about, and what was the response to your talk?
Sure thing. So my TEDx talk is called Fourth World Nation Building, if anybody wants to check it out. And I was actually invited by a dear friend of mine, Shauna Rappaport, who connected me with the TEDx community. And it was a really great experience, speaking alongside all of these other experts and top in their field. And the TED Talk was really exciting to put together because it draws on a lot of principles that I founded 10 Power on. And the basic concept behind this TED Talk was that we're essentially doing development backwards. Because if you think about it from a human development perspective, there's not a day when you stop developing and you say, okay, now I'm a developed human, everybody else should be like me. It's actually something that throughout your lifetime, you're constantly striving to develop new skills and gain new knowledge and figure out new ways to interact with people in the world. And so I propose that we should actually flip development. So instead of all nations trying to be first world, which if every single human on the planet had an American's footprint, it would actually require 5 planet Earths. So it's completely untenable in the long term just with the present population. And instead of everyone striving to be first world, we should actually be striving, just like tech, which is 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, to achieve fourth world status and then fifth world status, which means leveraging all these great technologies that we already have at our disposal. So looking at how cell phones completely leapfrogged over the need for telephone lines. We can do the same thing with renewable energy, where we have no need for power lines anymore, and use artificial intelligence and big data and virtual reality and the internet to help spread all this knowledge to people and bypass this whole idea that countries have to go through a period of industrialization and sweatshops and polluting in order to reach the future. So there's a new idea that I'm teasing out right now called quantum development, which is utilizing all of these best of breed practices and taking a little bit from here and a little bit from there and creating this innovation fusion to suddenly wind up in a place of exponential growth where within one lifetime, within a couple of decades, we can take these what today are third world countries and least developed nations and create a completely new future that might lead the way and create new examples for what we're calling developed countries today to achieve in the future. So that's the idea behind fourth world nation building and quantum development.
Well, that sounds exciting. And when you get that idea teased all the way out, we'd love to have you back on to discuss it some more. It sounds like a fascinating discussion, and some of the stuff in there that you brought up, I find of interest because I think there's definitely a lot of discussion that needs to go on and how do we move forward as energy professionals. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to link to all the stuff that you mentioned in the show notes so people can find you. They can find your company, your TED Talk. Anything else that you'd like to plug or promote that we didn't get to today?
So actually, when you were talking about Haiti earlier, it brought to mind to me the amazing partners that we're working with on the ground. And after Hurricane Matthew, we actually created an industry association called the Power Haiti Coalition that highlights the amazing work that companies in Haiti are doing and then brings in international partnerships to help really leverage that great work that they're doing on the ground. So helping to mobilize local talent and doing capacity building and then helping people rebuild in areas that were completely destroyed, where all the farmers' trees and crops got ripped out for the entire season by the storm. So helping to rebuild sustainably and resiliently and bringing in these best practices. So just wanted to mention Power Haiti Coalition, powerhaiticoalition.org, and that's an industry association that we had put together to show the great work that's happening locally already there.
Okay, great. And we will link to that in the show notes as well, guys. Thank you for bringing that up. And you can find out more about what all they have going on by checking out the show notes and the Power Haiti Coalition. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and I've loved the work that you guys are doing, and just best wishes in the future.
Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Sandra, for coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation there. A lot of information. Love hearing what's going on in Haiti and all that you guys have going on there. And just really love the methodology that she broke down on how they came about this idea and going to the locals and getting their input. And so a lot of good stuff there. Be sure to check out her bio and all her contact information in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, keep climbing.
Thanks for listening to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R2 Global.